Oh well.
All right. Well, we'll figure it out as we go.
Make it up like always. It's pretty good. I'll just be Tim. I'm the Tim now. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the
Yeah.
Tim. Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 121 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada. We're recording on Monday, February 26, 2018, and yes, we have a late start today. I had to go to that hellscape that is Toronto to see in person how diversity could be our strength. Spoiler alert, it's not.
All right. Is this intro time now?
Yeah, do the intro. Why not?
All right. I'm Marty, hunter and sports shooter in rural Southern Ontario.
As always, my name is Andrew. I'm a recovering libertarian, a competitive shooter, and a firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical. I also won first place at the Golf 3 gun match on the weekend. You know, for anyone else that's keeping score out there.
Well, it's easy to claim victory when others don't show up.
I beat 20-ish people, however many were present. That's what
That's
counts.
pretty good.
Yeah, I was happy with it. I smoked it. It was under a minute. It was great. We had a lot of people timing out at 120 seconds.
You beat
Yay,
Jeff?
3 gun. I beat Jeff. I beat Warren. I beat Steve. I beat several people.
That's pretty. There's some good names. There's some good shooters there then.
Yeah. It was the top 5 people were probably only a 5 second spread, but whatever. It was a good time. We shot all the guns. All my reloads were.
Similar
I got
format,
both.
all steel.
Yeah, all steel, 19 targets. Dueling tree for rifle, knockdown plates for shotgun, Texas Star for handgun, 5 point star. Um, Nothing crazy, but I mean, like 50-yard indoor range, having to move a little bit. Unloaded start for rifle and shotgun, like unloaded empty.
Yeah.
Reloading the shotgun, or I guess just loading the shotgun because it was empty start. Killed a lot of people time. And honestly, just 4-inch plates with a rifle was hard for a lot of people. So there was a lot of people burning rounds on that, and I ran my rifle rounds off nice and quick because I was all zeroed up for 50. So ready to go.
Yeah. The loading shotgun that gets everybody, and it's one of those things where like everybody tells you, like everybody knows that it comes down to loading the shotgun, yet it still seems to be the area that everybody struggles with.
It's because a lot of people, and myself included, don't practice enough. But I guess I practice more than everybody else that shows up to our matches.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
think
also had a really
in general, the having the OAS last year and the year before, that really seemed to push the competency of action shotgun of a lot of the shooters in Ontario. But we'll see what happens this year if we're going to have anything similar.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll have some kind of outlaw match, I imagine.
Yeah, it's just a matter of whether it'll be a league or not. We'll see.
All right, I guess we should ask people for money. It's time for me to beg for shekels. Oh no, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah,
We can,
you're
let's.
jumping.
I'm out of order, but let's beg for shekels. You can help support the show. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon today. Your support of the show allows us to continue to have the show because if you don't pay for it, I can't afford web hosting because EI does not cover my wife's regular salary and I need that money to feed my baby. So send me a loony. I would appreciate it. Going back into the show notes and doing it in order, we'd also like to hear your feedback about the show. If you want to hear us get all autistic about loading shotguns, you can drop us a line feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com and give us your shotgun loading tips. The show is available on the Stitcher and the iTunes links. As always, are in the show notes.
Well, now you're out of order. I don't know where we're going with this. So I guess you
Party.
can check out the podcast at facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast or Instagram at Instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
That these are true statements. Well done.
Yeah. I mean, this is what you get. You make show notes and then jump around. No one knows what the hell you're doing.
I have had a day that has been. Have I told you that I have a newborn? Sleep is not the easiest thing, and then driving to Toronto has totally sapped my energy. So we should go into what are we drinking? Because Arrowhead Coffee is owned and operated by Canadian Armed Forces veterans. They love our country, the true north, strong and free. Their family and friends join Arrowhead Coffee on their hunt for the perfect brew to raise morale and bring that feeling of home to you, no matter where you are. A portion of all profits helps Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and their family. I'm drinking coffee, and I've got a bunch of Kahlua in it.
Nicely done.
What are you drinking, Marty?
I'm drinking. Hang on. Northern Harvest and Coke Zero.
Right on. Don't have to update the show notes.
Yeah. I had to turn around the bottle. I'm like, I don't remember which bottle I grabbed.
Whiskey. I'm drinking whiskey.
Yeah.
Somebody who's not drinking whiskey, but I think deserves some kind of medal. There was an Olympic curler's husband at wherever the hell the games are being held. Pyeongchang? Is that? I don't Korean. Is that Korea?
That's pretty good. Yeah.
So yeah, 9 a.m. Pyeongchang time. Most Canadian ever is double fisting beers, watching his wife win at curling. I would like to award this man most Canadian. You aspire to a level of beer athleticism that we all should.
You know that there's a comment in here that not all heroes wear capes. I feel like this man deserves a cape. I think that should be something we should invest in.
Yeah, Molson, somebody, can you guys get on that? Give this man a beer cape. This is, yeah, good for you.
I also like that
German.
there is, there was somebody random that was tweeting the photos. It was keeping count of this guy's beer count.
I'm very proud of Sean German. I hope his wife did well. I didn't really watch much Olympics. I could not care about curling if I tried. But you, sir, well done supporting your wife and double fisting beers at an Olympic venue. My hat is off.
I mean, he's under he's stressed out. He's watching his wife compete for an Olympic medal. He's stressed out. Obviously, he's just grabbing a beer. I mean, I don't know. Or two. Well, I'm sure there's a line. You probably don't you don't have to wait in that line twice.
I imagine it's like going to most sporting venues where it's a big line for a beer, but if you've got two hands, you may as well take two beers because you're just going to want another one later anyway. So, yeah.
And my experience in Korea is it's actually kind of difficult to get beer. So I imagine this is probably, I don't know if they made an exception for the Olympics, but beer is not often served as an individual drink. It's usually a beer comes out for the table, like you would see a bottle of wine over here kind of thing.
Countries that aren't Canada are weird.
Yeah. But soju.
Speaking of Canada being
soju, they're very frequent and easy to acquire.
Soju is like rice liqueur?
Yeah, it's some sort of rice wine type of thing. It's actually of the Asian rice alcohols. It's one of the better ones. It's pretty drinkable.
All right. Segue was ruined, whatever. Globe and Mail article. Let's talk about the Canada Revenue Agency cracks down on undeclared tips for restaurant and bar staff. Surprise, surprise. The people that can't bother to answer their phone and answer our tax questions has time to audit minimum wage earning employees that are not declaring their tips. Imagine my shock.
No, I believe these are the 1% tax cheats. That's what our government is referring to these people as.
Well, they don't own a business; they work at a business. Although I can understand how that would confuse the communists.
Yeah, these people are getting money given to them in exchange for a quality of service, and the harder and better that they do at their job, the more money they're getting. So we must put a stop to this.
This is what happens when the government interferes with business. Government is bad, business is good, free market.
It's disappointing when there's not more people to laugh at my funny drops. So I guess going into the details of this story, this seems to particularly affect a group of servers at a restaurant conglomerate in Prince Edward Island. So up to 200 of their employees have received letters from the CRA for January of this year, accusing the employees rather of lowballing the gratuities they earned in 2014, 2015. CRA is claiming that some individuals failed to declare as much as tens of thousands of dollars and is asking for back taxes on it with potential for further financial penalties for up to half of what's owed. I don't have much good to say about the CRA on the best of days. This is socialism, guys. This is what happens. The government agency that's supposed to collect taxes that's too busy to answer their phones and regularly hangs up on Canadians can find the time to go back and adjust taxes from 2014 for people that are likely earning at or slightly above the minimum wage to serve in restaurants in Prince Edward Island. This is... You disappoint me, Canada. If you remember,
I think this was a Liberal campaign promise, or if not a campaign promise, something that they announced, very shortly after taking power. It was that they were going to be investing, I forget the dollar figure now, but a substantial amount of money into CRA to go after tax cheats, and that was their plan, was to increase revenue was by going after all these tax cheats. Now, the Liberal voters assumed that they meant, corporations and people that let's say the actual 1%, that when people think of the 1%, like these big conglomerates that are, using loopholes in tax laws. But no, they don't go after those guys because they have good lobbyists. They go after the average person. And that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah, the CRA needs to be violently disbanded. I have nothing good to say about these people. I feel for these servers. They are the middle class Liberals claim to be helping, and this is how they're being helped.
Yeah.
Let's do another one. We've got National Post article. Liberal plan to keep CF-18s flying until 2032 could cost an extra $1.5 billion. Can we please retire the fucking CF-18s already?
I mean, I don't know. What are we even going to say about this one?
Like this is $1.5 billion on top of the $500 million that the Liberal government's already planning to use to purchase 18 previously enjoyed Australian F-18s as a stopgap. Because we don't have enough parts and working aircraft to maintain our current fleet of CF-18s, so we're going to buy used ones from the Aussies. So let's drop another $1.5 billion. Like, I was inverted.
This whole jet replacement thing, this has just been mishandled by government after
Could we
government.
not just have the Joint Strike Fighter, like $1.5 billion more on CF-18s to keep them operational until 2032 with still no plan for what happens once the fleet is end of life? Like, we still don't have a thing. Like, we don't have.
We still don't have
that can fill the role.
We're gonna replace them with Sea King soon. So
they're gonna start doing about the same thing as Sea Kings. They're gonna be really good at going down, but this makes me sad. I don't. Basically, I am sad and disappointed, and it's the Liberal government, and I'm not terribly surprised. Like, we have less than 100 aircraft. We're going to continue to have less than 100 aircraft. CF-18s. I shouldn't say that. We have more aircraft than that in the force's fleet of aircraft, but we're going to continue to have 88 operational strike fighter aircraft, and we're going to get 18 from the Aussies to keep that number up. Like, this is... We really should have just kept funding the Joint Strike Fighter. We'd have new planes by now.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting in that they're spending, like, they are spending money on the military, but they're not doing anything with it. Like, this is just the, like, epitome of liberal spending, where we spend a lot of money and have nothing to show for it.
Yes, and I mean, like, I hate to say it, but this is kind of that drop in a bucket argument. Like, our military's budget is close to $19 billion. So, okay, like 1/20th of the budget is on the planes. I mean, I'm rounding, it's not really, but like, call it 1/20th of the budget is on these planes. That's a significant investment in terms of our military's budget.
Yeah.
But $1.5 billion doesn't exactly buy you a lot of fucking planes.
And what happened to Harjeet saying, they were going to make sure that our soldiers had the tools and that they needed to do the jobs that they were required to? I mean, if we're still running CF-18s till 2032, it seems like they're not going to have the tools that are required to do the jobs.
Yeah, the CF-18 is an outdated airframe. Like, when did they go into service? In the 80s?
I don't. We'd have to Google that one, but
yeah, I've had January 7, 1983.
Yeah,
I mean, they've been upgraded. They've got the new avionics package. Like, hooray! But like, an F-35 is $100 million. Can we just buy like 20 F-35s as like to get like a single operational squadron up and running?
I don't know, man.
This is stupid. All right, let's do something different. We got gun news. Let's talk about guns.
Do you have anything in the show notes that isn't the government doing stupid things?
No.
No, okay. Or more of the same then. All right. We got this.
More of the same. Well, okay. I guess this one isn't particularly the government. This is a Globe and Mail article. And this particular journalist. Where's my button? Journalist at the Globe and Mail, Peter Donalow, trying to control the narrative much here. Yeah. Canada shouldn't be smug when it comes to guns. So I guess this isn't directed specifically at the government. This is directed more at Canadians that are proud of being Canadian and that they're not American. I take issue with many things that Mr. Donalow has written attacking gun owners based on the laws in our country following the misuse of firearms in another country.
I mean, luckily there's nothing factual in this article.
No, it's all made up nonsense, which is kind of what I wanted to talk about, because it's like, I'm going to use facts and statistics, but I'm going to cherry pick all of them and discount the ones I don't like. Because journalism. Yeah. That's not the right button. Journalism. There we go. That's the right button. Yeah. So among first world countries, Canada is the 4th highest rate for death by firearm. Ooh, scary. More than twice the rate of Australia, 10 times that of Britain, and one of the highest suicide by firearm rates in the developed world. Well, that is all technically accurate information. It fails to take into account the vast majority of the statistics that are backing those things. Australia and Britain have heavy prohibitions on the ownership of firearms. So their death rate using firearms has gone down directly as a result of that prohibition. Their overall death rate has not changed significantly since they put massive prohibitions on firearms. The same is true of statistics for suicides. Where guns are unavailable, the rate of suicide by gun tends to drop. The rate of suicide stays constant. People find another means of killing themselves or others. This is the shoddiest of journalism.
Yeah, and that, I mean, like, that's this big argument here is that, the death by rate by firearm, and he even indicates in this article that majority of that is suicide by firearm. And yeah, as you said, like, suicide by firearm, if people are committing suicide, they're committing suicide and they're just choosing, whatever method is convenient to them, more or less. And when there are firearms around, then they'll choose that. If firearms aren't around, they'll choose something else. That doesn't make the death rate higher or lower. And that's one of the always the issue is when people look at, firearm deaths instead of just looking at death rates. Because if you get killed by being shot, or you're killed by being bludgeoned to death, or you're killed by jumping off of a bridge, dead is dead. And our firearms...
It's much more virtuous to be killed by bludgeoning rather than being shot. That is a far more virtuous thing. I've been assured of this by the communists.
Yeah. So, and then what does he goes on to say? The Harper government's war on gun control is
yes, Harper is literally Hitler.
Yeah, well, he did. Never forget that. Well, you have to remember we were at war for 10 years there under Harper, but the war was on gun control. That was the war, the battle that we were in, and so it's remembered for its triumphant elimination of the National Firearms Registry, along with the destruction of records on more than 5 million registered weapons, except in Quebec, whose provincial government went to court to prevent the destruction of gun registry records in that province. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, sounds impressive until you realize that they've effectively not changed any of the laws under Harper. Okay, so we don't have to register non-restricted firearms anymore. There's also nothing to prove that the registration of non-restricted firearms had any impact on crime statistics in this country.
Well, I think that was it was shown that it had no impact, yet was costing us billions of dollars. And that was
billions of dollars, but there was no correlation with public safety. There's also been,
according to this journalist, that was just the beginning. The Harper government overruled the RCMP when it tried to ban several military assault weapons, including one reputedly used in the Quebec Islamic Center massacre.
We should revisit the Quebec Islamic Center massacre at some point, because there's been some information that's come to light from police reports about what the investigation has found. So we should revisit that at some point, because the article that they're referencing from 2015 with regards to the Swiss Arms series of rifles, I don't think is accurate at this point based on recent police reports.
Yeah.
But let's not use a perfectly good massacre to try and push a political agenda.
And again, like, overruled the RCMP when it tried to ban several military assault weapons.
Yeah,
RCMP
last I checked, the federal police force is...
Yeah, RCMP overstepped their authority and tried to reclassify existing firearms that were in this country legally for many years, with many of them sold without any issue of those firearms. So it's such a bullshit statement.
Super, super bullshit. But it sounds scary on paper, which is the point of the agenda.
Yeah.
The Queen's Cowboys made up some rules.
So let's continue on with this guy. When they scrapped the registry, they also eliminated the legal requirement that sales of rifles and shotguns be tracked, a requirement in place since the late 1970s. What now?
Yeah, demonstrably false. Like,
what?
Not misquoted, not like misrepresenting a fact, like literally making things up.
Like, I don't even know what
outright lying
referring to.
But nothing that has ever taken place in our country. Like, just blatant making things up. So now anyone with a gun license can buy as many unrestricted guns as they want with no record kept. Well, that's It's not actually true, but let's assume that we lived in Clown War for a minute and said that it was. If you have a firearms license and you've passed your training and received your licensing and follow all of the laws and regulations regarding the storage and ownership of those firearms, why is there a problem with how many someone owns? That's never been codified in our laws, nor should it be. If I have 1 guns or I have 1 million guns, I still have guns. Is he proposing that there should be a limit on guns?
Also, there is still the CFO ledgers in every firearms retailer.
Well, I said we were going to entertain his clown world theory for a moment, but you're right. Now anyone with a license that goes to a firearms retailer, someone who is licensed by the government to sell firearms, is required by the chief firearms office in many, if not all provinces, to keep a paper ledger of the sales of their firearms, whom they sold it to, and the serial number, the unique identifying characteristic of each firearm they sell, as a condition of their firearms business license. So
that
to say that there are no records being kept, to say that there are no records being kept is hyperbole at best. But it's okay. We can get into a really good statement because we talked about this probably ad nauseum on the show, but we've talked about this early in the show's history. And I have said this before, that the anti-gun, rabid leftist communists that want to take away your ability to own firearms as a law-abiding Canadian will start calling your hunting rifle a sniper rifle to make it sound scary. And this is the first instance that I have a reputable news source doing what I've predicted. The meme magic is real. I say things on the show, and then they happen. This includes sniper rifles, which are sold as unrestricted firearms, as well as the infamous Ruger Mini 14 used to kill 14 women in the Montreal Massacre of 1989. Nah, sorry, bro. Sniper rifles are not unrestricted firearms. That is a misnomer, like an assault rifle. It's not a thing. But this is what they're going to use to come after your scoped deer gun.
Yeah, that definitely anything that's bolt action with a scope, that is a sniper rifle.
Oh, 100%, because it's scary language.
Nah, this next this article is amazing. All right, let's go with the next. We're reading this sentence by sentence. We're not even skipping over stuff. This is how good this article is. Gun owners can now avoid screening with automatic 6-month license extensions.
Again, demonstrably false. That's
not what the 6-month grace period is at all. So gun owners are screened every 24 hours.
Yeah, continuous eligibility screening happens once per 24-hour period for absolutely every Canadian that holds a firearms license.
And then it continues, and police lack the resources to enforce the law.
The one factual statement in the entire article.
Yeah.
To enforce the law. That should have been the entire article.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of laws. Police are not being enforced. We have laws
that exist that prevent crime, and the police just don't have the resources to enforce them. Or our justice system is turning the criminals back out again. That can also be an argument. Anyways, this is another good one. Are you still there?
Yeah, give her.
I didn't. All right. In so many ways, thanks to the relentless assault on decades-old common sense gun rules, it is now much easier in Canada to own a gun than to drive a car.
Again, with the demonstrably false statements, we have never had common sense gun rules in this country. Well, maybe prior to 1934 we had common sense firearm. No. Maybe prior to 1834 we had common sense gun rules in this country. But as long as we've had licensing schemes in this country, they've been arbitrary and made up. Nothing about the current licensing regime makes sense. Going back to the firearms acquisition certificate, the FAC system of the 70s and 80s, it doesn't make sense. The possession acquisition, restricted possession acquisition licenses of today that have been in place since 1995 don't make any sense. The authorization to transport being a separate or linked document doesn't do anything to deter crime. And it is not easier to buy a gun than to drive a car in this country.
So
because you can go and write a test,
not
and
even
then drive a car.
A 12-year-old could go buy a car and drive it on private property.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. I was going to talk about the use of the commons, but you're right, because the Highway Traffic Safety Act does not apply to private property. Anyone of any age can operate their privately owned motor vehicle on their own property.
Correct. So,
so explain to me again how it's easier to get a gun.
Exactly. A person of any age can purchase a car. That there is no age limit for being able to purchase a car. It's just a piece of property. There's age limits and licensing limits to drive them on public roads. But to own the mere ownership of a vehicle is not restricted in any way. So yeah, a child could go, if they had the means, could buy a car and drive it on private property. There's nothing stopping them. There's no law stopping them. Now compare that to the ability to own a gun. You must be 18, I think, to be able to get your PAL, right? You can get the youth PAL at like 16 or something like that, but I think you have to be 18
right,
to get
but you can't actually own the gun. It can only be temporarily transferred into your possession for use.
Yeah, you can get the youth hunting at 16, but I think to get your PAL, you have to be 18. I'm pretty certain. So you have to be 18 years old. You have to, take the weekend course. You have to pay the hundreds of dollars. You have to submit your license and your test. You have to submit your test results and submit your license request. You have to then go through the whole background check with references checked. You are then issued a license, which takes, basically you're looking at 6-8 months before you can get all this completed. Then you're subject to continuous eligibility, background checks every single day. This is many levels more onerous than anybody at all in this country can just purchase and drive a car on private property. To say that this is just so non-factual.
I don't really want to address the stats about the gun increases. We can hit this briefly. From 2012 to 2016, the import of guns into Canada has almost doubled from the previous 4-year period. Yes, but the number of licensees has also increased in that time. The number of licensees has been increasing at a dramatic rate for the last decade. More people in Canada have firearms licenses now than ever before. Supply and demand, there are more people that want guns, therefore there are more people bringing guns in the country to sell, so there are more guns in circulation. Because, economics and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to touch on is that this guy is equating that the increased amount of, licensors and enthusiasm and all that behind firearms in this country is a result of the, quote, laxness that has been created. And that's, there's no evidence of that being the case whatsoever. Firearm sports are one of the fastest growing sports in North America. That's, and that is the safe, law-abiding Canadians that are enjoying their firearms in a legal way, in a safe way, and are not, they're not statistics in these crime stats.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. What else do we have? American style gun culture. Well, whatever. We have American style everything else culture. We watch their TVs, their movies, their music. We have their celebrities, their sports. Yeah, like to say that we're saturated with American style gun culture, that's not. You can't blame the NRA for that. Like you could maybe blame Hollywood because the whole like violent movies being in theaters every weekend, and the video games the Americans release, and the breakdown of the traditional family unit in Western civilization. Though you could blame all of those things on the Americans, maybe, but I don't think that you can just say that American style gun culture is like you can't just lay that at the feet of Canadian gun owners.
And what is the NRA other than a voting bloc? It is a group of citizens who are voting in unity. This is not a business lobbying the government so that they can make more profits. This is a group that's representing a block of voters. I mean, of all of the lobbying that occurs, and that being said, if you look at the statistics of the NRA's budget, they spend very little of all money raised by the NRA goes into lobbying, and they spend far less than any of the gun control lobbying groups in terms of actual lobbying.
It's important to point out that the NRA doesn't directly lobby the government. So when you become an NRA member, you're not giving money to the NRA to hire a lobbyist to go to Congress and members of the U.S. Congress or Senate. You're giving them money to teach children gun safety, to support the Eddie Eagle program, to put firearms locks in every gun that's sold in America. The NRA Institute for Legislative Action, the NRA ILA, is the lobbying arm of the NRA. And as a regular NRA member, you are not funding the NRA ILA. It is a separate thing that you have to choose to donate money to. So
what I find people don't understand is
like
they complain about the amount. They complain about the amount of power the NRA has, but the power that the NRA has is because of the large number of people that they represent. Their power comes from their large voting base.
Which
and that's exactly
it's a democracy in that country. Allegedly.
That's how democracies work. If you have a large group of people that all want to vote one way, they have a lot of political power. This is not corruption. This is not anything evil. This is a bunch of people that want to vote to protect their own rights and their own beliefs.
Well, we certainly can't have those Second Amendment sounding groups in Canada like, the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, our friends over at CCFR, or the more frankly titled Canadian Gun Nuts. The internet forum where you can talk to other Canadian gun owners. Canadian Gun Nuts is in fact not a political lobby or any sort of lobby or any sort of political thing. Literally, it's a forum on the internet where you can talk to anyone else on the internet about gun stuff and other topics because they have other.
Please tell me there's an article that talks about Canadian Gun Nuts.
It's mentioned in this article. And groups such as the Second Amendment sounding, in the Globe and Mail one, and groups such as the Second Amendment sounding Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights and the more frankly titled Canadian Gun Nuts have grown more assertive and bellicose. Okay, so CCFR has one registered lobbyist. How many lobbyists has Pauly Souviant got? Or the Canadian Coalition for Gun Control? Well, those are the same, but they technically two lobbyists. But we're allowed to advocate in our own interests. It's a thing. I mean, it upsets the communists, but we're allowed to advocate in our own interests. They haven't outlawed that yet. Sorry, commies.
Wow.
Yeah,
I just reopened it. I'm like, I missed that on the first read through. I didn't see that they actually. At the end of the article, he actually calls out the group, the Canadian Gun Nuts. They become absurd and bellicose.
Wow,
that
just wow,
awesome.
Sam. Wow, just wow. I got.
Oh, this guy is awesome. What world does this guy live in?
Clown world, man. Like this guy just like. Well, I don't have facts or statistics that back up my position, so I'm just gonna make some shit up.
And you could tell from reading this, like this is one of those guys that truly believes everything that he's saying.
Yeah. Before we get into the the article that Rod Giltaca wrote on firearmsrights.ca, you know, the home of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, I want to address something that's going on in the YouTube chat. So CT Radio 85. It's a serious invitation. If you want to come on and like explain to me your premise on why certain firearms of certain calibers or certain magazine capacities, how many bullets they can hold, if you'd like to come on and like have a discussion in good faith about your point of view and try and explain it to me, I put the link in the chat on the live chat in YouTube. You can just click that button. It'll open Hangouts. You'll be on live with Marty and I. Because like we could have a discussion in good faith about why you believe those things, and I would be happy to listen to your point of view. But if you don't want to come on the show and explain your point of view, then I guess that's okay too. But at some point, I'm going to have to address your feedback. Let's do the firearms rights thing. See what happens with the live chat, if it's still going on or not. Basically, CCFR calls this guy a knob for being a knob because of all of the things that you and I just discussed, Marty. Like, there's Danilo then reaches into matters he seems to know virtually nothing about. That should be the summation of the article. The one thing that I wanted to specifically bring up, the very last line, I don't know in the last paragraph if Rod is making this statement honestly or if this is like internet trolling at its finest. If someone states that civilian and firearm ownership in Canada represents an unacceptable risk to public safety, let them prove it with facts and evidence in the daylight of mature and honest discussion. Thankfully, the Trudeau government has committed to a fact-based approach to lawmaking, so confidence is high that this will all get worked out.
I mean, I think that's
I feel like that's some pretty epic shitlording.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, maybe that was written the way that it was like intended, but I kind of want to give Rod and the CCFR credit for like a very shitlordy post. Well played, sir. Well played.
You know, and it while it's funny for us, it also should, you know, it very much highlights the fact that there's nobody taking him up on that. The fact that there isn't anyone that can actually make an argument based on, you know, actual, you know, logic and facts that show this. You know, the only arguments that they can make is on, you know, feelings and emotions, you know, that they're scary and that they're afraid of them and that they, you know, they feel that this would make an improvement. There's, you know, factually, there's nothing there.
Yeah, is sad, but that's okay. I got nothing else for that. We can. Yeah, well done. You have achieved shitlord status. We'll see how long you keep it.
Yeah. One of these days, we'll have to get you on the podcast and you can talk about it.
It would be really nice to talk about him. It's too bad we had to do the show late tonight and the timing didn't line up for his schedule. Yeah. Okay, so let's assume that Mr. Radio is arguing in good faith on the internets here. He says that he's trying to get on, but his Mac is bugging out when he's trying to download Hangouts. I don't know, bro. It's a link. You click on it. It's in your browser. I don't know. Some people seem to have problems with Hangouts, but most of them are using phones. So let's address the question. Then we'll move on to other stuff. If you get your computer aids sorted out, feel free to join us. If not, drop me a note. Feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. I will happily troubleshoot your technical issues with you offline so you can come on and we can have an honest discussion with one another about facts, because we do that sort of thing. I like that. Seriously, feedback, CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Tell me who you are. Tell me you want to be on the show. I will hook you up. The question that we should address, though, Marty, before we move on. Do you guys think that teachers should be armed? Would you like to start?
Oh, what's the Tony Bernardo? I think Tony Bernardo's response in the interview that he went through was pretty good. Do you have a better idea?
I would like to present what I feel is slightly better idea. The vast majority of law-abiding people should have the option to choose to be armed. Abdicating your personal responsibility to agents of the state to protect you is a weak-willed beta male cucky position to hold. You should be ashamed for having it. You are responsible for your own well-being and the well-being of your family. If you don't want to accept that responsibility, that's fine. There are agents of the state that you can call. I hope they arrive in time to save you and your family. In the case of everyone else who can follow laws and obtain a firearms license in this country, there's absolutely no reason they should not be allowed to carry the tools to defend themselves.
Yep.
Fight me.
No, it's I think that so up until I want to say is it 1995, teachers were allowed.
In Canada?
No. Obviously, this guy's talking about the United States.
Yes. Okay. A valid point. I believe that would vary by jurisdiction, but I am not surprised.
So up until 1905, this had the the teachers were allowed. Now, is that saying that all teachers must be armed and must carry? No. What it does is it allows those that have the ability, that have the proper licensing allows them the right to carry for protection. What that does is it takes the targets off the schools. What we've seen from all of these mass shooters, they're targeting these gun-free zones. They're targeting these weak areas that they know is going to be very little or no opposition. So by allowing those who are lawfully allowed to carry, it then makes they do not know that if they go to a school that there's not going to be armed opposition. Takes the targets off the schools, takes the targets off the kids. So it's a very valid solution, and one of the better solutions that I've heard, because I've not heard any other solutions that make any sense.
No, I'm with you.
And I think that was Bernardo's response was, what's your alternative? Like, if it's not that, if it's not removing the target off these kids, then what do you propose? If it's not, it could be armed security in all these schools, like that could be another thing. But the only way to stop these shooters is to have somebody that's willing to oppose them.
Well, and okay, I guess if we're going to deal with this in the American example, because I don't want to dwell on American examples, but in the case of the Broward County shooting in Florida recently, that's brought all of this to international attention again, and bringing up guns in the public discourse, there was an armed sheriff's deputy in the school who chose to violate the standard operating procedure of charging the gunman, and instead went to go hide in a parking lot.
Yes.
Remember,
this is why
only the police and military should have guns, because only the police can protect you, except when they're busy hiding in the parking lot because they don't want to actually engage with the offender.
Yeah. And that is the example right there. That is why every individual should have the right to carry. They should have the right to protect themselves and not rely on the government to do so, because you cannot rely on other people. It is your responsibility, and it is your right to protect yourself and your family. And right now, we currently have a government that is preventing us from doing so.
Yeah, I hope that adequately addresses the question. If it doesn't, or if you'd like to address your other points, drop me that note, feedback, CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. We got an email. We've got a domain. We've got web hosting. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. We're on the internet, but I need your help. Go to patreon.com/CPP. Give me a loony, please. I seriously, I just want your money. Was it Goodfellas? Fuck you, pay me. I should get the drop for that. I think that's Goodfellas. I don't know. I'm Marty is neither agreeing nor disagreeing. So my pop culture is.
I don't know what you're referencing. So whatever it is, I've not seen it.
It's a line in a film, and I think the film is Goodfellas. And I will look for the drop and have it at some point in the future.
I have not seen Goodfellas, so it very well could be that.
You're dead to me.
I know. We've had this conversation before about how I've not seen that. I think your response was similar last time we talked about it.
At least you own an AR-15, otherwise we would not be friends. All right, let's talk about India.
Justin Trudeau
went to India recently and managed to jam his sandal-covered foot right into his mouth. This is... I don't even know where to start with this. This one is gold.
I don't want to... like, what can you even say? Like, where do you begin? Where do you even say? Like, everybody's seen it. The guy went. He had a half a day worth of business planned. He brought all his entire family. They spent, was it 8 days there?
8 days in India with a half a day of actual work.
Yeah. So right off the bat, let's call a spade a spade. This was a vacation on taxpayer dime. You don't
Marty,
bring all your kids.
We didn't have any money.
Well, we don't. This was, you're right. This was not on taxpayer dime. This was on borrowed, on taxpayer debt. That's what paid for this.
That's even worse. I was just making a reference to the veteran not having enough money for veterans, but yeah, deficit spending for the shiny pony to go vacationing in India.
Yeah.
It's too bad we didn't have a big, beautiful country that he could visit parts of and enjoy himself in.
So, yeah, I don't even want to go into this. This is just
I know. Like,
this is so sad.
Let me hit a couple of high points. A few years ago, previous prime minister, the one that was literally Hitler, Harper went to India, and Harper was greeted by their head of state, their prime minister, and heads of their government and heads of governmental departments. Trudeau goes to India. Trudeau was met by the Minister of Agriculture or some nonsense, some low-level minister. Like, not even a ranking cabinet position.
Yeah. Allegedly. I'm not certain of how the cabinet
allegedly
works in India, but that was what was reported.
Somehow, I don't think the guy that's in charge of farming is one of the, key positions. Somehow. Federal money was used to fly Trudeau and his wife and children to India for some reason. He decided to wear Star Wars socks one day to show somebody he meant business, I guess. I'm not sure why they're still so fascinated with the Darth Vader socks, but I guess that's what he wore when he was being snubbed by the Indian Prime Minister. Whatever. Can we talk about the other clothing aside from the socks, though? Because the other clothing, the cute photo ops that just did not work. So
again,
Trudeau and family wearing traditional Indian garb,
everywhere they went.
Everywhere, all the time. And even one Indian, Indo-Canadian, Canadian-Indian, whatever, immigrated from India to Canada, MP is like, nah, even Indians don't wear that every day. Stop being a knob.
It wasn't just him.
Seriously.
There was I watched a video with it was an Indian fashion designer going, well, thank God that was a Canadian Indian fashion designer that made all the clothes for them, because if over here, that would not fly. They're this guy was like, that is way too Indian for even Indian people to be dressed like that. This guy was like, they look like the background dancers for a Bollywood movie.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculously over the top.
But again,
I mean,
what I haven't seen yet is how much did we pay for those outfits? Because the government hired a Canadian fashion designer to design and make these clothes for them. I guarantee this is not cheap what they did to dress him up like a retard.
This is tens of thousands of dollars. On the low end, figure $1,000 per outfit per person. There's at least 5 pictures of different outfits. There's 5 people, like $25,000 on the low end.
I don't know. Honestly, I think you're not even close. I bet you it's way more. Like those Indian outfits, from what I've seen, those Indian outfits cost a lot of money, even if you're not getting them custom made and designed.
Yeah, I don't. This is silly. Like congratulations, we are a laughing stock. Like the Daily Mail says we're a laughing stock. The Washington Post says we're a laughing stock. Like
worldwide,
everyone is now making fun of us because the leader of our country went to another country and dressed up like a clown. For cutesy photo ops, and it backfired massively. So he doubled down at least 4 more times.
Yeah, and like the crazy thing is when you see him with all of, like the other Indian people around, like they're in suits.
Yeah, because
like he's the only one dressed like this. And like, okay, I was talking to my wife about this, and I'm like, look, as a white male, we have it really easy. We have one outfit, the suit. If you're going to any event ever in your life where your photo might be taken, you wear a suit. That's it.
Yeah. Right? Like, it's not hard.
Like,
and I know he was literally Hitler, but when Harper went on his official India visit, he wore a suit. When Kretchen went on his official India visit, he wore a suit. It's not hard to dress and act like an adult. Just put on a dark suit, a white shirt, and a tie. Prime Minister, right? It's Prime Minister.
Yeah, so in the Indian Prime Minister, when he comes to Canada, he doesn't dress up like a Mountie.
I should certainly hope not. Yeah, this is
he's not going to show up wearing like a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey or something like that. Like he's going to dress in a suit because that's what adults wear.
He's a serious leader? Yeah. Because he's a serious leader of a serious country. We're not a serious country. We don't have serious leadership.
And like going back to his lack of business on this trip, he went on this trip. He didn't bring, he didn't bring his agricultural minister, which would have made sense considering India is our largest agricultural trading partner.
You know who he did bring, though? Celebrity Indian chef from Vancouver. Because if you go to another country, you definitely want to bring a chef from your own country to prepare traditional dishes from the country in which you're visiting.
What? There's nowhere we can go with this.
I feel like I'm waiting for somebody to go out and be like, "You're getting punked right now. You're on Mad TV." Like
Indian Canadian chef to India to cook Indian food for him.
I don't even understand. Like,
you couldn't find anybody there that knew how to cook Indian food.
I realized that it wasn't likely like Justin Trudeau making the decision of who goes. But like there were people in the PMO's office that like had a meeting at some point and they went, yeah, so this guy from Vancouver, he's going to come on the trip and he's going to cook all the food. And somebody was like, isn't he like a celebrity Indian Canadian chef? Like, doesn't he have like books on a TV show and stuff? And like, that's what he does is like Indian food. And somebody was like, yeah, we're totally putting him on the plane to.
He went there to cook one meal.
Oh, yeah, that's again. We're not a serious country. We lack serious leadership because somebody in the PMO office approved this.
But
how?
So, I don't understand. Like, if they wanted to, like, the whole thing was this was supposed to be some some joint dinner where it's to highlight Canadian stuff, why not bring a chef that cooks, I don't know, like more traditional Canadian food or something other than Indian food? Okay, if you're the Indian leader and you're coming to Canada and like he's going to bring a chef to cook, do a meal for our prime minister or our leaders or whatever business and stuff like that, I could see them bringing an Indian chef over and they're going to do Indian food. You can all try it and show how great Indian food is. I wouldn't expect them to bring somebody over from India to cook us like burgers and French toast and poutine.
We're not a serious country. We're just not.
It's like we can do that. Like if you're gonna bring someone over from your it better be like traditional of your country so that this is we can share in our culture, type of thing. But like we're not gonna bring someone over to share your culture and like shove our interpretation of your culture in your face.
Yeah, everyone is making fun of us for this. The Americans, the Brits, the Indians. We're not a serious country anymore.
Yeah. So
let's move on. We got promo stuff. Ragnarok Tactical is proud to be a dealer for Mantis X shooting performance system. We expect to have our first order available in mid-March. We'll have demo unit on hand for TACOM March 24 and 25 in Ajax, and the introductory pricing for the Mantis X shooting performance system will be $199.99. This is guaranteed to be lower than any other authorized Canadian dealer because I got a smoking good deal on these things. And as always, we got $10 flat rate shipping anywhere in Canada.
Dude, you gotta be more enthusiastic when you're trying to shill your own products.
Yeah, well, it's been a long day. I had to go to Toronto.
So what is Mantis
X? I had to deal with a lot of
diversity.
I'm getting to that. I got to get all the good stuff out.
You're not getting to that. You're out of it.
You're right. I'm out of it. Okay, so I guess briefly, TACOM is happening March 24, 25 in Ajax. It's being put on by Firearms Outlet Canada. It's an acronym that stands for a thing. Their website is TACOM Canada, TACCOM, Canada like it's normally spelled, .com. March 24, 25. It's in Ajax. It's going to be at Firearms Outlet Canada in their new facility that they're opening. They've got that building with the range in it. It's the Tactical and Competitive Shooting Sports Show. I don't really understand their acronym, but that's fine. The point is, Ragnarok Tactical has a booth there. There's going to be a whack of vendors. I think there's over 50 vendors that are supposed to be there. Nanook cases, CSSA, Tactical Ordnance, TDSA, Mossberg, SIG, Smith, CZ Canada, or CZ USA, whoever. HK, Colt Canada, the CCFR, Glock's going to be there, Grand Power's going to be there, Vortex is going to be there, Surefire, Blue Force Gear, Israeli Weapon Industries, Odell Engineering, Wolverine Supplies. Like, there's going to be a lot of vendors there. Both Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tickets are free. I think they want you to register in advance. I don't know if tickets will be available at the door, but hey, it's free. Go online, get your tickets, show up. We're going to have a booth. That's TACOM. The Mantis X shooting performance system is some really fancy accelerometers that you bolt onto your gun, any gun, for whether you're doing dry fire or live fire, or it works on air guns. So if you have a CO2 powered BB gun type thing, like an airsoft gun, it's a bunch of fancy accelerometers that work over Bluetooth to connect to an app that runs on a smartphone. We saw these at SHOT Show. They're very interesting because it works for live fire and dry fire, as well as the airsoft. I'm less interested in the airsoft thing, but if you're into that, I mean, whatever, go nuts, fill your boots, right? What it's training you to do, or what it's trying to diagnose with you, is a less than perfect trigger press. So it's for dry fire practice, or like I say, you could use it for live fire, and it's trying to diagnose trigger manipulation issues that a shooter might suffer from. So, for example, if you get nervous when you're shooting, you have a habit of flinching. It will detect the flinch and it will try to draw your attention to what you're doing wrong and make suggestions for what you can do to improve. I don't know that I agree with all of the things that I've seen in the app, like more or less finger. It's really just more stop flinching, but at least you can tell what you're doing wrong and why. Is there anything specifically you had questions about with it? No? Good. Okay.
No, not really.
In the marketing literature, they're claiming that 94% of shooters improved after using the Mantis X for 20 minutes. This is in their like beta testing of their product, doing dry fire.
Improved what?
Well, that's the thing, is it's very unclear about what their level of skill is to begin with and what they improved. And it seems to be that they scored higher in the app, and the app is just measuring like extra movement when you press the trigger. So it scores you on like a 100-point percentage scale, and the closer you get to 100, the less movement there is, because it's just measuring the movement of the accelerometers. It's like it's a fancy gyroscope.
Yep.
So
I think I'm mostly bitter because I prototyped this like 5 years ago and then never did anything with it.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's an interesting concept for dry fire. I like that it's also got an option that it's supposed to work with live fire reliably. The hardware seems robust and well built. It connects to anything that has a pick rail, and if it doesn't have a pick rail, they make adapters for it. So it'll work on your shotgun. It'll work on an AR with a free-floated smooth handguard. It'll work on a standard 1911, like 1911A1 that doesn't have a pick rail on it. So there's adapters to connect it to things where you would not normally have a pick rail.
Where does it connect on a non-rail limit? Does it connect to the magazine?
To the magazine floor plate.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought, yeah.
Which, I mean, it's a reasonably sensible place to put it, because you're just replacing the floor plate on mag, so it's a pretty simple thing to do. For shotguns, it goes on to...
I've seen arguments online about that specifically, because it's online and the internet likes to argue about everything. And guys will argue that like it's less accurate if it's on the floor plate because there's less movement. Bullshit. As someone who works with gyros as in my career, the gyro reading, whether it's on the pick rail or it's on the magazine, is identical. Displacement doesn't matter.
Yeah, I could see like maybe a change in amplitude, but I don't see it being...
Nope. It's the same.
No?
Yeah, it is absolutely the same. Yeah, it does. Displacement doesn't matter. It's all the change in angle, and the change in angle on the floor plate is the same as the change in angle on
the same plane.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. Yeah, they look super cool. The best price for them right now in Canada is around $220. I got a really good deal through Mantis X through a relationship that we built at SHOT Show with them. So we're going to be offering it at $199.99 is our introductory price point. Going to be lower than any of their other authorized retailers. Most places are significantly more expensive in Canada. A lot of the places are around $300 for these right now. I have an even better deal for listeners, though. If you're listening to Canadian Patriot Podcast right now and you want one of these, send me a note, sales@ragnaroktactical.ca, so I can put your name on the list. And when you get your invoice and pay for this, when we have them ready to ship in the middle of March, at checkout, before I ship it to you, enter pre-order, all one word, pre-order, just like it sounds, and I will take another 10% off. It'll be $179.99. You literally cannot get these for less money. Cool.
All right.
Cool. Let's move on to the next thing. 8th annual
How long is that
Firearms
lasting, the pre-order?
Mid-March when we get them in stock, or until all the ones I order get pre-ordered.
Yeah.
So Order now. Sales@ragnaroktechnical.ca. Tell me you want one of these, and particularly if you need an adapter, let me know so that I can include it in the order, because that's going to be the part that, like, I'm not bringing in 1,000 different adapters because we're not bringing in 1,000 units, because I don't have that kind of like space for that many boxes in my recording studio. Hey Daniel,
awesome.
can you fire a spot? Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm quite happy
delay,
about
sorry.
it. That's fine. What's that? Fuck Trudeau. I don't have a drop for that.
Well, we do have a drop though. We shouldn't. We should just do quickly before we hit the charity shoot. All right, I'm just gonna play it. Is that what you, that's waiting for you to acknowledge that, but okay.
Are you going to hit the play button? Or?
Frankly, the most common complaint I get from Canadians, from Canadian businesses, from people in general is you're not bringing in enough immigrants.
Yeah, no one's making that complaint. That's a lie. You're a liar. Get out of my helicopter.
Is he? I bet you. Okay, saying that that the common Canadian is complaining. The most common complaint he's getting from Canadians is that we're not bringing in enough immigrants. Completely a lie. That is bullshit. That is not the most common complaint that Trudeau is getting. Is that the most? Excuse me. Is that the most common complaint he's getting from businesses? Quite possibly. Because businesses understand that the more immigrants they get in, the more slave labor they get. You know, the cheaper they can keep wages down, and the more, you know, cheap labor they can get. You know, that essentially drives down the minimum wage. You know, drives down the middle class. So I can see there's all kinds of businesses that are like, yeah, bring in more immigrants. We need cheap work.
Yeah, why pay a Canadian what you could pay somebody else to do?
Right. But as someone who's supposed to be, you know, championing the middle class, they should be entirely against bringing in all of these immigrants. But hey,
all I have to say is
Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on. 8th annual Canadian Firearms Podcast Network charity shoot will be July 5th to 7th. This year's charity is the Dalhousie Regional High School Breakfast Program. We've talked about the details before. Follow Slamfire Radio or email them slamfireradio@gmail.com. I guess they don't have enough Patreons to buy an actual domain. Get Trevor to get you sorted out. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Every day is a different thing. It stands to be a good time. I will be there. Gavin will be there. We will have other people there. I understand Matt from International Arena or Death Podcast will be there. There may or may not be there. Yeah, there may or may not be other internet celebrities in attendance. Check the Restigouche Gun site, or the Restigouche Gun Club's website if you need an invitation letter. Or for fun, email Trevor, slamfireradio@gmail.com. If nothing else, just to say hi, because I kind of just want to flood his inbox. It'd be funny for me. Let's do rapid fire feedback. We've got an email from Andrew Y. Yes, this is really an email from Andrew Y. No, I didn't write it. No, it's not the same as other Andrew. I refuse to call him better Andrew.
But he is.
Whenever I start...
Really is.
Shut up. Well played. Whenever I start to feel content or ignorant to the way our government is run, I turn to your podcast. I quickly realize how messed up everything is, and I start looking at property sales in Texas. It's not all doom and gloom, because I find myself laughing so hard sometimes I almost have to pull over my truck. Oh, I should probably mention that I listen on my long-ass commute in the oil sands. The only suggestion I can give to your wicked podcast is length. I want to hear more, which may be selfish because my commute is almost 2 hours one way, and 1 hour isn't sufficient. If you ever need an example of stupid government spending, take a look at the multi-million-dollar crying scaffold. I think it's a non-functional weather art thing. Fort McMurray tax dollar spot. By the way, frack taxes. Please keep being skeptical of all government and shining a light on the things the media tend to hide. Glocks reign supreme. Keep her tight and stay out of the weeds, bud. Want to thank Andrew Y for his feedback. I would be happy to produce 2 hours of audio content on a daily basis. Lord knows our government does enough that I have no shortage of things to talk about, but I need your help. Patreon. I have to do the day job. Ragnarok Tactical. Well, it is a great tax shelter. It's not enough to replace my salary as a wage cuck. I, for example, had to go and wage cuck today for 12 hours in Toronto. It was truly atrocious. I would much rather talk into a microphone for 2 hours at a time. So send me your loonies. Marty, do you have anything else?
No, I think we covered that art sculpture. That's the one that's like the steel girders with rocks on it, isn't it?
He says this one's in Fort Mac, though. I think we talked about one that was in Edmonton. I mean, all of Alberta is basically the same to us. It's very flat. We can't distinguish.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
it's
Ontario.
It's nice to hear that we have international listeners, and that's always a good thing.
Poor Alberta not being part of Canada anymore.
But yeah, I forget where that one was. But
take that stance.
My wife even took a picture of that one for me, but I forget where it was. She's probably yelling. I still feel like it was as well.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, likely not Fort Mac, because I don't remember her being in Fort Mac. So.
Yeah, well, Fort Mac would be a hard thing to remember.
All right, let's see if we can Google it quickly. We got time.
Sure.
This podcast. Sure. It's barely been off the rails. Right, what does he call this thing?
Non-functional weather art thing. Oh yeah,
that. Let's see if we can find the crying scaffold in Fort Mac.
For sale.
I got nothing. So send us a link and then we'll discuss it and make fun of it. But right now we don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's safe to say it was a waste of money. It's a government art installation.
Yeah, government should not be purchasing art. That's just the answer.
Why the government is involved in an art show is beyond me.
That was a ridiculously appropriate drop.
I know. I'm like, I have one for this exact situation.
All right,
government.
Yeah, let's wrap this show up.
Our
Marty,
show's a lot more fun. We're not talking about depressing news.
Send us more loonies so that I can replace my income, and I will do this podcast every day. I will do it for 2 hours every day for enough loonies. Seriously, we're going to need more listeners and a lot of loonies.
We need to sell a lot more Mantis X.
So many more Amanda's X. Marty, where can everybody find the show?
All right. The show.
Yes, this show.
CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. That one. You can send us feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com, or you can like us on Facebook. We have many, many likes, and you can add to that.
Marty, your expertise on social media is showing again. We are actually above 700 likes now. We've recently broken a new high score, if you will. I would very much like to beat New Shooter Canada or Slamfire Radio, because despite what some people might tell you, everything in life is a competition, and I would prefer to get more Facebook likes for our show, since we were the first live podcast in Canada, which certain other podcasts are now copying. And we're obviously the superior podcast. I know, because I keep being accused of being a supremacist. If you want to buy some Band-Aids or get your pre-order Mantis X shooting performance system, or you want to sign up to take some courses, shop.ragnaroktactical.ca, or just Ragnarok Tactical, and then click on the shop link. It's there. We do online sales of products and merchandise. I will take your credit cards. My payment processor has not yet shut me down, although I'm sure they're trying to find a way to do just that.
Well, when you do so little business through them.
Yeah. I want to thank Rod Giltaca for sending us the article that he wrote for the firearmsrights.ca website. I'm sorry that my late return home this evening prohibited him from being on the show. For all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I would like to remind them that you are the true North, strong and free.